What is good, everyone? Welcome to the channel. Today I'm doing kind of a continuation of my episode from last week where I talked about little things in Japan that I really love, things that you wouldn't normally think of and probably wouldn't even notice unless you lived here, but that I've come to really enjoy and find particularly special about the culture. Today I'm going to do that again, but with a twist. This time I'm going to talk about things that I really didn't like when I first came to Japan. Things that bothered me, irked me, that I just found distasteful or just plain didn't like. And now I've come to see the actual goodness in it, or I've basically changed my mind. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Again, short intro, so let's just get going. Okay, before I get started with my list, I just want to mention one other thing that I didn't really like in the beginning that I've come to sort of appreciate, which is asking you to hit the like button and subscribe. Self-promotion has never really felt natural to me, and so always asking people to do that on these videos, I've always felt self-conscious. But since I've started on more recent videos to kind of come up with clever ways to introduce this whole hit like and subscribe thing, I've begun to enjoy it more. Self-promotion still feels a little weird, but I guess I've gotten used to it to some point. And speaking of which, what have I gotten used to about Japan and actually have come to like about it that I didn't originally like? The first one might actually surprise you. It is school uniforms. I think for most people, the whole school uniform thing in Japan is one of the charms. And it's something that is kind of a symbol or something that kind of represents school days in Japan. And so, it should be like an iconic thing that I kind of liked. But when I first got here, I had a real problem with it. Mostly because I guess it's maybe my very individually minded, individualistic upbringing in America, but it bothered me that school uniforms were the norm and that all the children had to wear them. And I saw them as a part of the kind of a microcosm of the greater uniformity of Japanese society, because as adults here, with the Saturday man uniform, all the uniforms of anyone who works for a particular company, gyosha-san, like contractors, whatever, it's a very uniform-oriented society. If you've been here and you've seen like the guardsmen who basically direct traffic in parking lots, etc. But for those reasons, I didn't really like it. But now I've come to appreciate it because it really does kind of act as a symbol and work as something that helps society here gel and basically helps people to work and get along with each other. And people who wear the uniforms really feel like they are a part of something and represent something. When I talked to most of my students in the university, whether they liked their school day uniforms, they thought it was a good thing, and they listed a lot of reasons why they liked them. And one of them that has always struck me as a good one is the fact that when you wear a uniform to school, no one can comment on how you dress. Like, if you don't have a lot of money for clothes, that kind of thing. Back in the States, you might tease the person for having hand-me-downs or having particularly old clothing. But in Japan, you're all wearing the same thing, so that's not going to happen. Plus the idea that you represent something larger than yourself. When you're wearing that uniform, you're representing your school. People will see you and they recognize the uniform. They're like, oh, you are from that place. I think I've finally gained an appreciation of that. The next 2 points I want to make have to do with transportation. The first is the open seat next to me on the train. If you're a foreigner in Japan, you've experienced this. People don't want to sit next to you. The 2 seats on either side of me are the last to fill, even if the train is pretty full. And sometimes they don't fill at all. Some Japanese would rather stand than sit next to the foreigner. I mostly chalk it up to like being afraid I'm going to talk to them. You know, I'm going to start speaking English at them or something, and they're not sure how they're going to handle that. I don't think it's because I smell bad, but that's actually one reason why I've come to appreciate it. I no longer feel insulted by having the open seat. Now I'm like, thanks for the space, and I don't have some Saturday man with tobacco breath sitting next to me, so avoid any bad smells myself. So that's a good thing. The next one that has to do with transportation is scooters. When I got here, I really disliked the fact that scooters, as I saw it, were breaking the rules. Even though the rules in Japan allow for scooters to ride alongside vehicles and basically cut to the front of the line at stoplights, etc., I really resented that when I first got here. I didn't like that at all. And it was quite annoying, and I found myself getting unduly stressed over driving when scooters would whiz past me and, as I saw it, butt in line. But over time you realize that it's got to be that way. You have to allow the scooters to get up and away, because if they were treated like regular vehicles like they are in the States, where you have to like wait in line and, you know, get behind cars at the stoplight, etc., not allowed to pass on the side like they do here, my God, the traffic would be so much worse. I mean, when people back home talk about traffic jams, I just kind of chuckled inwardly, because there's no such thing as traffic in Wisconsin. I mean, come on. Even Chicago traffic is child's play compared to a lot of the horrible traffic you can get into here. Basically, if scooters had to be part of that jam as well, not being able to cut to the front, it would be even more unbearable. Let's put it that way. So I've actually come to see it as, well, lucky them, and it's actually helping me to get to my destination faster, because people riding scooters aren't jamming up the roads. It's just all the other cars that I have to contend with. Probably the biggest thing that I didn't like when I first got here, that I actually really like now, and it's something that I've talked about on this channel before, is omiyage, or the souvenirs you're pretty much obligated to buy for people when you travel. Anytime you go somewhere in Japan, you're expected to pick up some kind of goods for friends and family, of course, but also for coworkers. And that's the one that annoyed me at first, because when I came to Japan, I was doing a lot of traveling, and therefore I was buying lots of omiyage, and I felt like, man, I'm spending all this money and I almost never get anything in return because the teachers I'm working with don't travel like I do. But I realized that was a really selfish way to look at things. I was the one that was traveling. I was the one that was getting out there and seeing and exploring new things. And why not bring something nice back to the people who didn't have a chance to go anywhere, and who maybe had to cover some stuff for me while I was gone? So I began to see it as just something that is really beneficial, again, to sort of the uniformity and getting along together in society. There's a bit of an apology in an omiyage souvenir for your coworkers, and that you're saying, you know, sorry for me being gone and having fun while you were stuck here. Live vicariously through me through this local treat that I bought in the town I visited, or Kyoto, or wherever it was that I went. So I've come to really like omiyage, and I've certainly received my share of it as well by now. So it's taught me some of the special things that you can get in other parts of Japan that I haven't been to. So it's a learning experience in that sense too, and I do appreciate that. All right, the final one that I will mention is actually one I haven't completely made up my mind about yet. It's actually something that still bothers me to a certain extent, but I realize that it's probably a case-by-case thing, and I really am not in a position to judge. I really didn't like seeing all of the elderly people in jobs here, as in like 70, 80-year-old women doing like the cleaning in public restrooms, and 80-year-old men out on construction sites waving a baton and, you know, acting as a gadaman for parking lots on the weekend, that sort of thing. It bothered me because I felt like this is their retirement years, and I couldn't fathom why, like, is the society not supporting their elderly people well enough? Like, I can't imagine that they're all doing this work out of their civic duty, feeling of pride for their society. I have a hunch it's because they're financially strapped and they need money. And that bothered me that like so many elderly seemed forced into these positions. Now I realize that this is becoming more and more the case everywhere in the world. People don't have the money, the pensions, all the perks in order to retire anymore. But I always thought of Japan as a society that really, first of all, venerated the elderly and also took care of them in a lot of respects. So when I saw all of the elderly working, it bothered me when I first got here. Now I'm not so sure, because I've met so many that genuinely enjoy their job in the sense that they love being active. They love the fact that it gets them out and doing stuff, and they probably worked tremendously hard hours all of their, career life, and leaving that life behind was something that they just weren't able to let go of easily. Like, if you were a workaholic all your career, suddenly you retire and don't do anything, and you're just a burden being around the house, or you feel like you need to stay active somehow. I mean, I said in the last video last week that I'm pretty sure I want to try to become a kindergarten bus driver when I retire from my teaching job. I would love to drive a bus and take care of the kids, and that would be, a 5-day-a-week job, morning and afternoon. So I wouldn't feel like I was, being imposed upon to do that. It's a way to keep active and, stay connected with young people, which is why I would like that particular job. So yeah, I've met too many people here now who are actually pretty happy with their job, including like the gate guardman who take care of the school where I work now. I mean, they all seem to really like the job and the social aspect that they get from interacting with other faculty and staff and all the students, and then with their fellow workers, who I'm guessing the average age is probably 70 something, like low 70s. So I guess it's maybe not a bad thing, and it's going to be case by case. So I shouldn't judge, and I shouldn't just automatically think that it's not something that's good for society. Maybe it really is. I don't know. What do you think? Am I going out on a weird limb with these? Do you relate to any of these, that you still dislike them, or you have always liked them, or you have changed your mind about them in some way? Let us know in the comment section below. As always, thank you very, very much for watching this particular video, and if you did enjoy it and you still haven't hit that like button, please go ahead and do so. Self-promotion, getting better at it, but again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch the video, and I will catch you in next week's episode. Peace.